The fluorescent lights of Riverside Correctional Facility hummed with their usual monotonous drone as officer Sarah Mitchell walked through the security checkpoint for her first day. At 28, she transferred from a smaller facility upstate, seeking a fresh start after her divorce. The gray concrete walls and the echo of heavy doors closing behind her felt oddly comforting in their predictability. "Mitchell, you'll be assigned to subblock," Sergeant Torres announced, barely looking up from her clipboard. "It's medium security, mostly non-violent offenders. Keep your distance, follow protocol, and you'll be fine." Sarah nodded, adjusting her uniform. She'd heard the speech before. Don't get involved. Don't show weakness. Never let them see you as anything but authority. It was a mantra she'd repeated to herself countless times during her 6 years in corrections. Skyblock was quieter than she expected. Women sat at metal tables, some reading, others playing cards. The air smelled of industrial cleaner and something she couldn't quite place, maybe resignation, maybe hope. As she made her rounds that first week, she noticed one woman in particular. Elena Vasquez sat alone most days, a sketchbook balanced on her knees, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She was 31, Sarah learned from her file, serving 3 years for embezzlement from the nonprofit where she'd worked. No prior record. Model prisoner. Eligible for early release in 6 months with good behavior. What struck Sarah wasn't just Elena's quiet dignity or the way other inmates seemed to respect her space. It was the art. During her rounds, Sarah would catch glimpses of Elena's drawings, incredibly detailed portraits. Landscapes that seemed to breathe life into the sterile environment. Abstract pieces that somehow captured the complexity of human emotion. "You're talented," Sarah said one afternoon, breaking her own rule about unnecessary conversation. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Elena looked up, surprise flickering across her face. Her eyes were deep brown, almost black, and held an intelligence that seemed at odds with her surroundings. "Thank you, Officer Mitchell." Sarah paused, surprised Elena knew her name. "How did your badge?" Elena replied with a slight smile. "And you're the new transfer. Word travels fast in here." That should have been the end of it. A brief exchange, nothing more. But Sarah found herself pausing by Elena's table more often over the following weeks. At first, she told herself it was part of her rounds, maintaining presence, ensuring order. But she knew she was lying to herself. "Tell me about this one," Sarah said one day. Gesturing to a particularly striking piece, a woman's face half in shadow, half in light, with hands reaching up as if trying to touch the brightness, Elena set down her pencil, studying Sarah with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "It's about the versions of ourselves we show the world versus who we really are. The light we reach for and the darkness we hide. That's profound for someone who embezzled money." Sarah regretted the words immediately. It was cruel, unnecessary, a defensive reflex. Elena's expression didn't change, but something dimmed in her eyes. "I did embezzle money, Officer Mitchell. $247,000 over 18 months. I used it to pay for my sister's cancer treatment when her insurance denied coverage. She died anyway 3 months before I was caught." She picked up her pencil again. "So yes, I suppose I know something about light and darkness." Sarah felt heat rush to her face. "I'm sorry. That was out of line. You're just doing your job. Keeping distance." "I understand." But Sarah couldn't leave it there. "Your sister. Was she younger?" "Older, Sophia. She was 35 when she was diagnosed, 37 when she died. She had 2 kids, my nephew and niece. They're with their father now." Elena's hand moved across the page in swift, sure strokes. "I see them once a month. They're the reason I need to get through this with my record intact." Over the next several weeks, something shifted. Sarah found reasons to patrol C Block more frequently. She started bringing art supplies she'd purchased from the commissary, better quality pencils, charcoal sticks, even some colored pastels. She told herself it was rehabilitative, that encouraging positive activities was part of the job. "Why are you doing this?" Elena asked one day, her voice low enough that nearby inmates couldn't hear. Sarah didn't have a good answer. "Because your art matters. Because you matter." Elena's eyes locked with hers, and for a moment, the noise of the common room faded away. "You shouldn't say things like that to me." "Why not?" "Because I might start to believe you mean them." I do mean them. Elena stood abruptly, gathering her materials. Then you're making a mistake, Officer Mitchell. For both of us. Sarah knew Elena was right, but she couldn't stop. During her night shifts, she'd find excuses to walk past Elena's cell. Sometimes Elena would be awake, lying on her bunk staring at the ceiling. Their eyes would meet through the small window, and neither would look away until Sarah forced herself to continue her rounds. It was during one of these night shifts that everything changed. Sarah heard muffled crying coming from Elena's cell. Protocol said to move on unless there was a safety concern. But Sarah stopped, pressed the intercom button. Vasquez? You okay? The crying stopped. A long pause. I'm fine, officer. Elena. Her name felt intimate, forbidden. What's wrong? Another pause. When Elena spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. It's Sophia's birthday. She would have been 40 today. Sarah's hand hovered over the lock release. She knew what she was about to do was wrong, could cost her job, could put both of them in an impossible situation. She pressed the button anyway. The door clicked open. Sarah entered the cell, letting it close behind her. Elena sat up on her bunk, eyes wide with shock and something else, fear maybe or hope. You can't be in here, Elena whispered urgently. If someone sees, it's 3 a.m. My partner is on the other wing. Tell me about Sophia. And Elena did. She talked about her sister's laugh, her terrible cooking, her fierce love for her children. She talked about the day she was diagnosed, the brutal months of treatment, the moment Elena realized she would do anything, break any law to save her. She talked about the guilt of surviving when Sophia didn't, of being in prison while Sophia's children grew up without either of them. Sarah sat beside her on the narrow bunk, their shoulders touching. She didn't think, didn't analyze. She just reached out and took Elena's hand. Elena sucked in a breath. Sarah, I know this is wrong. I know all the reasons we can't. She turned to face Elena. But I can't stop thinking about you. When I'm not here, I'm counting the hours until I see you again. When I'm here, I'm looking for excuses to be near you. This could destroy your career. I know. I'm an inmate. You're a corrections officer. There's a power imbalance. I know that too. And if you tell me to leave right now, I will. I'll go back to being Officer Mitchell and you'll be inmate Vasquez, and we'll pretend this never happened. Elena's free hand came up to cup Sarah's face. Her touch was gentle, trembling. I don't want you to leave. The kiss was inevitable, desperate, tender. Sarah had kissed her ex-husband hundreds of times, but she'd never felt anything like this sense of rightness, of coming home, of every piece of her life suddenly making sense. They pulled apart, foreheads resting together, breathing hard. We can't do this again, Elena whispered. Not in here. It's too risky for you. Then we'll wait. You're up for early release in 4 months. We can. Sarah, listen to yourself. You're talking about waiting for an inmate. Do you understand how that sounds? I understand that I've never felt this way about anyone. I understand that you're intelligent, talented, compassionate, and you made a choice out of love that most people would never have the courage to make. I understand that the system that put you here is the same one that let your sister die because she couldn't afford treatment. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know me. Then let me know you. How? You can't keep coming into my cell. Someone will notice. Someone always notices. Sarah thought for a moment. Your art classes. You help teach the Tuesday evening sessions, right? I could volunteer to supervise. That's still supervised time. We couldn't know, but we could talk. Really talk. Get to know each other properly before. Sarah trailed off, not wanting to jinx the possibility of before. Elena studied her face in the dim light filtering through the cell door window. You're serious about this. Completely. You're crazy. Probably. Elena laughed softly, sadly. I'm going to break your heart, maybe, but I'd rather have my heart broken by you than keep it safe and never know what this could be. The art program met in A converted storage room every Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Sarah's supervisor approved her request to volunteer without Question budget cuts meant they needed all the help they could get with. Programming. The first Tuesday, Sarah forced herself to maintain professional distance. She helped set up supplies, monitored the room, assisted inmates who needed extra materials. She didn't talk to Elena beyond basic directions, but she felt Elena's presence like a magnetic pull, was aware of every movement, every glance. "You're making this harder," Elena murmured as she passed Sarah to clean paintbrushes at the end of the session. "I'm following your rules. No risk, no crossing lines." "I know. That's what makes it harder." By the third Tuesday, they'd established a rhythm. Sarah would help Elena set up. Their hands would brush as they arranged supplies. And they'd steal moments of quiet conversation between helping other inmates. "Tell me about your ex-husband," Elena said one evening. Sarah grimaced. "Really? That's what you want to know?" "I want to know everything." "Start with him." So Sarah talked. About meeting Jake in college, about thinking she should want the traditional path: marriage, house, kids. About slowly realizing she was performing a role rather than living her life. About the fights that became routine, the coldness that settled between them like frost. "Did you love him?" Elena asked. Sarah considered. "I loved who I thought I was supposed to be with him. I loved the idea of normal. But no, I don't think I ever truly loved him the way you're supposed to love a spouse." "Have you ever been with a woman before?" The question hung between them. Sarah helped a nearby inmate open a stuck paint tube before answering. "Not physically. But I've thought about it, wondered. There was a friend in high school, and I remember thinking she was beautiful, wanting to be close to her in ways I didn't have words for. But I pushed it down. Convinced myself I was just admiring her, not attracted to her. And now?" Sarah met Elena's eyes directly. "Now I know the difference. And I know what I want. Sarah." Elena's voice carried a warning, but her eyes told a different story. "I'm not asking you for anything you can't give. I'm just being honest." Elena set down the paint supplies she'd been organizing. "I've known I was gay since I was 16. I came out to my family at 18, dated women throughout my 20s. Sophia was the only one who fully accepted it. My parents, they came around eventually, but it was hard. Being Latina and gay in a traditional family, there were a lot of complicated conversations. That must have been difficult." "It was. But it was also freeing. I decided early on that I'd rather be authentically myself and lonely than pretend to be someone, and not just to make others comfortable." She paused. "Which is why this is so complicated. Because I know the risk you're taking, questioning yourself, potentially upending your whole life. And if this goes wrong, if I'm just some experiment or crisis for you, you're not." Sarah's voice was firm. "I've spent my entire adult life pretending. Elena, pretending to be satisfied with Jake, pretending to want the life we built. Pretending I didn't notice the way my heart raced when certain women walked into a room. I'm done pretending." As the weeks passed, their Tuesday evenings became the center of both their worlds. They developed a subtle language of looks and small gestures. A brush of hands passing supplies meant "I'm thinking about you." Elena leaving her sketchbook open to a particular drawing was her way of sharing her feelings when words were too dangerous. Sarah bringing Elena's favorite coffee black with just a splash of cream from the commissary was her quiet declaration, but they both felt the weight of Elena's approaching release date. 2 months left. Then one. "I've been thinking," Elena said one evening as they cleaned up. The other inmates had already left, and the guard monitoring the hallway had stepped away for his usual cigarette, break a 10-minute window they'd learned to anticipate. "About what happens when I get out." Sarah's hands stilled on the supplies she'd been packing away. "And I have conditions for my parole. Can't leave the state for 6 months. Have to check in weekly with my parole officer. Have to maintain employment." Elena moved closer, her voice dropping. "But there's nothing that says I can't see you. Outside of here. As civilians, you're sure?" "We should check. I already did." I asked my lawyer hypothetically about fraternization rules post-release. As long as there was no sexual or romantic relationship while I was incarcerated, which, officially there hasn't been, there's no prohibition. Elena's eyes held Sarah's. "So I need to know. Is this real? When I walk out those doors, are you going to be there?" Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. This was the moment, the point of no return. She thought about her life, her small apartment, her routine, her careful construction of normalcy. Then she thought about Elena's laugh, her insight, the way Sarah felt more herself in these stolen moments than she'd felt in years. "I'll be there," Sarah said. "I'll be waiting right outside those gates." Elena closed the distance between them, bold despite the risk. She took Sarah's face in both hands. "Then we do this right. No more visits to my cell. No more risk. We wait. And when I'm free, we start this properly. That's torture. That's smart. We've come this far without getting caught. Let's not mess it up now." Sarah knew Elena was right, but it didn't make the next 6 weeks any easier. She continued volunteering with the art program, but they maintained careful distance. No lingering touches, no whispered conversations when the monitors weren't watching. They were professional, appropriate, exactly what they should have been from the beginning. It was agony. Elena's release date fell on a Tuesday. Appropriately enough, Sarah had requested the day off, citing personal business. She stood outside the gates at 8 a.m. just as the morning shift was arriving. Wearing civilian clothes jeans, a soft blue sweater. Her hair down instead of pulled back in its usual tight bun. The sun was just burning off the morning fog when Elena walked through the gates, carrying a clear plastic bag with her few possessions. She'd been inside for 2 years and 8 months. Sarah had known her for 7 months. Their eyes met across the parking lot. Elena walked toward her, not rushing, taking her time. When she finally stood in front of Sarah, both of them seemed unsure what to do. "Hi," Sarah said, feeling suddenly nervous. "Hi." Elena smiled, a real smile, unfettered by the weight of prison walls. "You came. I said I would. People say a lot of things." Sarah reached out slowly, giving Elena time to pull away. She didn't. Sarah laced their fingers together, feeling the warmth of Elena's hand, the way they fit together. "I'm not people." And I meant what I said. Elena squeezed her hand. "So what now? Now?" "I was thinking coffee. Real coffee, not commissary swill. There's a place about 20 minutes from here that makes the best lattes in the state. And then," Sarah felt her courage building, "then I'd like to take you to dinner. A proper date. If you're interested, a date." Elena's eyes danced with amusement and something deeper, joy, maybe, or relief. "Officer Mitchell, are you asking me out?" "It's just Sarah now." "And yes." "Yes, I am." "Then yes, just Sarah, I'd love to have coffee with you." "And dinner." "And whatever comes after that." They walked to Sarah's car together, still holding hands. Sarah opened the passenger door for Elena, who laughed. "Chivalry isn't dead." "Apparently." "My mother raised me right," Sarah replied, closing the door and walking around to the driver's side as they drove away from Riverside Correctional. Elena stared out the window, watching the facility disappear behind them. "I didn't think I'd miss it," she said quietly. "But in some ways, that place gave me you. Changed my life in ways I never expected." Sarah glanced over at her. "Do you regret it? What you did for Sophia?" "No, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I just wish the system wasn't so broken that I had to." Elena turned to face Sarah. "But I got through it because of you. Because Tuesday evenings gave me something to hope for. Because you saw me as a person, not just an inmate number." "You made me see myself clearly for the first time in my life," Sarah replied. "So I guess we saved each other." The first few months were a study in learning each other outside of prison walls. Elena moved into a halfway house while completing her parole requirements. She got a job at a local art supply store where her knowledge and talent quickly made her invaluable. She reconnected with her nephew and niece, building back the relationship that incarceration had fractured. Sarah helped where she could, but she was also careful to let Elena rebuild her life independently. She didn't want to be Elena's savior or the only good thing in her post-prison existence. She wanted to be her partner. Their first real date was everything Sarah had imagined. The restaurant Elena chose was small and intimate, with warm lighting and food that tasted like love. They talked for hours about everything and nothing: childhood memories, favorite books, dreams for the future. "I want to go back to school," Elena said over dessert. "Get my degree in art therapy. Work with people who've been through trauma. Help them process their experiences creatively." That's perfect for you, Sarah said. You'd be amazing at that. And you? What do you want? Sarah paused, considering. I want to leave corrections. I've been thinking about it for a while, but meeting you made it clear. The system is broken and I don't want to be part of it anymore. I'm looking into social work programs. Maybe working with at-risk youth, trying to keep them out of places like Riverside. Elena reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. Look at us, trying to fix the world. One small piece at a time. That night, Sarah walked Elena back to the halfway house. At the door, Elena turned to her. I really want to kiss you right now. Sarah's breath caught. What's stopping you? Nothing. Not anymore. This kiss was different from their first. That one had been desperate, stolen, weighted with impossibility. This was free, joyful, full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. I think I'm falling in love with you, Sarah whispered. I think I'm already there, Elena replied. It wasn't all easy. Elena struggled with the stigma of her conviction. Job interviews would go well until her background check came back. She'd see people's expressions change when they learned she'd been in prison. Watch opportunities disappear. Sarah struggled too. When she eventually came out to her family, her mother cried not from disappointment, but from guilt that Sarah had felt she couldn't be honest sooner. Her father was quiet for a long time before asking, Are you happy? When Sarah said yes, he nodded. Then that's all that matters. But there were harder moments. Sarah's ex-husband sent angry messages accusing her of having lied to him, of wasting his time. Some of her colleagues at work made snide comments when they learned about her relationship with Elena. Should have known you'd go for the criminals, one guard sneered. What, normal women weren't broken enough for you? Sarah reported him to HR and requested a transfer to a different facility. She couldn't stay at Riverside, not with Elena's history there, not with the judgment in every hallway. Elena finished her parole without incident. The day her restrictions ended, they celebrated by taking a weekend trip to the coast, their first time traveling together. Their first time waking up in the same bed without fear of consequences. I could get used to this, Elena said. Watching the sunrise from their hotel balcony. Sarah's arms wrapped around her from behind. Good, because I'm not planning on going anywhere. 2 years after Elena's release, they moved in together. Sarah had finished her social work certification and landed a job with a nonprofit helping previously incarcerated women reintegrate into society. Elena was in her second year of her art therapy program, maintaining a 4.0 GPA while volunteering at a domestic violence shelter. Their apartment was small but filled with light. Elena's art covered the walls, some pieces from her time inside, others created in freedom. Sarah's favorite was a portrait Elena had painted of her, capturing not just her features but something essential about who she was: strength and vulnerability in equal measure. They hosted dinner parties, combining their friend groups. Some of Elena's friends from before her incarceration had drifted away, but others had stayed loyal. Sarah's friends from work mixed with Elena's classmates. They built a community, a chosen family. Sophia's children came to visit regularly. The oldest, Maria, was now 14. She'd been suspicious of Sarah at first, protective of her aunt. But over time she'd softened. One day she pulled Sarah aside. Thank you for making Tia Elena happy, she said. After my mom died, I thought she'd never smile like that again. But you gave that back to her. Sarah had to fight back tears. Your aunt did that herself. She's the strongest person I know. I'm just lucky she chose to share her life with me. 3 years after Elena walked out of Riverside Correctional, Sarah stood in front of a university auditorium. She'd been invited to speak at a criminal justice reform conference. Sharing her perspective as a former corrections officer who'd seen the system's failures firsthand, Elena sat in the front row, offering silent support. I used to believe in the system, Sarah told the audience. I believed that people were in prison because they deserved to be, that justice was being served. But then I met someone who challenged every assumption I had. Someone who committed a crime not out of greed or malice, but out of love. Someone the system failed long before she ever broke the law. She talked about Sophia's death, about the healthcare system that valued profit over people, about the impossible choice Elena had faced. She talked about the women she'd met in Riverside who were there because of poverty. Addiction, mental illness problems that require treatment, not incarceration. We have to do better, Sarah concluded. We have to build a system that actually rehabilitates, but addresses root causes, that recognizes the humanity in every person, no matter what they've done. Because the woman who changed my life, who made me see the world differently, who taught me what love really means, she wasn't defined by her worst moment. None of us are. The applause was thunderous. Afterwards, dozens of people approached Sarah, wanting to know more, wanting to get involved, wanting to change things. Elena stood by her side, proud and supportive. As they drove home that evening, Elena reached over and took Sarah's hand. You were incredible today. I just told the truth. That's what made it incredible. Elena squeezed her hand. I love you, Sarah Mitchell. I loved you in that prison when loving you was impossible. I loved you through every challenge we faced. And I'll love you for the rest of my life. Sarah pulled the car over, unable to drive with tears blurring her vision. She turned to Elena, this woman who transformed everything. Marry me. Elena's eyes widened. What? I know I don't have a ring. I know this isn't romantic or planned. But I can't wait anymore. I want to spend my life with you. I want to make it official. I want the world to know that you're mine and I'm yours. Elena laughed through her own tears. That was possibly the least romantic proposal ever. Is that a no? That's a yes, you impossible woman. Yes, I'll marry you. I'll marry you 1,000 times over. They kissed there in the car, parked on the side of the road, traffic passing by, not caring who saw. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying and laughing. Should we call people? Elena asked. Tell your parents? Tell Maria? In a minute, Sarah said, pulling Elena close again. First, let me just hold you. Let me remember this moment, how happy I am, how lucky I am, how much I love you. They sat together as the sun set, planning their future, dreaming their dreams. A former corrections officer and a former inmate, two women who'd found each other in the most unlikely place, who'd risked everything for a chance at real love. It wasn't the story anyone expected. It wasn't easy or simple or without challenges. But it was theirs, authentic and hard-won and absolutely true. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The venue was a small garden in the countryside, rented for the afternoon. White chairs arranged in semicircles faced an arbor covered in climbing roses and trailing ivy. It was late spring, and everything was in bloom, the air thick with the scent of flowers and fresh-cut grass. Sarah stood in the small cottage that served as a changing room, adjusting her suit for the third time. She'd chosen a tailored navy jacket with matching pants, a white silk shirt underneath. Simple, elegant, very much her style. Stop fidgeting, her mother said, reaching up to straighten Sarah's collar. Margaret Mitchell had aged gracefully into her 60s, her hair now more silver than blonde. You look beautiful. I'm nervous, Sarah admitted. That's normal. I was terrified on my wedding day. Sarah met her mother's eyes in the mirror. Mom, can I ask you something? And I need you to be honest. Of course. Are you okay with this? Really okay? Not just accepting it because you love me, but actually happy that I'm marrying a woman. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. When you married Jake, you looked beautiful in your dress. You smiled all day. You said all the right things. But your eyes were empty, Sarah. I told myself I was imagining it, that you were just nervous or tired. But I knew. Mothers always know. She turned Sarah to face her directly. Today, right now, you're more nervous than I've ever seen you. But your eyes are alive. You're glowing with something I've never seen in you before, genuine joy. So yes, I'm happy. I'm thrilled that you found Elena, that you found yourself, that you're brave enough to live authentically. I'm just sorry it took you so long to feel like you could. Sarah pulled her mother into a fierce hug, careful not to wrinkle either of their outfits. Thank you. Now go marry that wonderful woman before she thinks you've changed your mind. Meanwhile, in the main house, Elena was having a similar moment with Maria. The teenager had helped her aunt get ready, pinning flowers into Elena's dark hair, which hung in loose waves down her back. Elena wore a simple white dress, tea-length with delicate lace sleeves. You look like a princess, Maria said, stepping back to admire her work. I feel like I'm dreaming, Elena replied. Like I'm going to wake up and still be in that cell, and none of this will be real. Maria took her aunt's hands. It's real, Tia. You survived. You made it through. And now you get your happy ending. Your mom should be here, Elena said, her voice breaking. Sophia should be standing beside me today. She is here, Maria said firmly. I feel her. And she's so happy for you. She always wanted you to find someone who loved you as much as you deserved. The ceremony was small but perfect. 40 guests, mostly close friends and family. Elena's parents were there, her father still somewhat uncomfortable but making an effort. Her mother openly weeping from the moment Elena appeared. Sarah's brother served as her best man. He'd been skeptical at first, protective of his sister, worried she was making a mistake. But after meeting Elena, spending time with them as a couple, he'd become one of their biggest supporters. When Elena walked down the aisle, no one giving her away because she belonged to herself, Sarah felt her breath catch. Elena was radiant, glowing, more beautiful than Sarah had ever seen her. They'd written their own vows. Sarah went first, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Elena, I spent most of my life pretending to be someone I wasn't. I built a life based on what I thought I should want rather than what I actually wanted. And then I met you, and everything I thought I knew about myself shattered. You taught me that love isn't about obligation or expectation, it's about seeing someone fully, completely, flaws and all, and choosing them anyway. You chose to see the best in me even when I couldn't see it in myself. You made me brave. You made me honest. You made me whole. I promise to spend every day earning the gift of your love. I promise to see you, to choose you, to stand beside you through everything life brings. I promise to never stop fighting for the world we both want to build, a world where love like ours isn't remarkable. It's just love. You are my person, Elena Vasquez. Today and always. Elena had to pause several times through her own vows, overcome with emotion. Sarah, you came into my life during my darkest time. I was lost, broken, convinced that the best parts of my life were behind me. And then you saw me, not the crime I committed, not the inmate number, but me. The person underneath all the pain and guilt and fear. You looked at me and saw someone worth knowing, worth loving. You risked everything for a chance at us, and that kind of courage changed my life. I was so afraid of love for so long. Afraid I'd never find it, or that I didn't deserve it, or that I'd already used up my quota of happiness with Sophia. But you showed me that the heart doesn't have quotas or limits. Love isn't finite, it's infinite, renewable, always growing if we tend it properly. I promise to tend our love with everything I have. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your biggest supporter. I promise to challenge you when you need it and comfort you when you need that instead. I promise that no matter what obstacles we face them together. You saved my life, Sarah Mitchell. Now let me spend the rest of mine showing you what that means. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden when they exchanged rings, simple gold bands they'd chosen together. When the officiant pronounced them married, their kiss was met with thunderous applause and cheering. The reception was held in a barn on the same property, decorated with string lights and wildflowers. They had a potluck dinner, everyone contributing dishes, making it a true community celebration. Elena's art covered the walls, pieces she created specifically for the occasion, all depicting different moments in their relationship. During their first dance, Sarah pulled Elena close and whispered, "How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky," Elena replied. "We found each other against impossible odds." "That's not luck, that's fate. I don't believe in fate. Neither did I until I met you." The first time the social worker brought Jasmine and Marcus to their home for a visit, Sarah and Elena were both terrified. They'd been approved as foster parents after months of home studies, background checks, and interviews. They'd taken the required classes, prepared a room with 2 beds, filled a closet with clothes in various sizes, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of 2 traumatized teenagers standing in their living room, carrying garbage bags with all their possessions. Eyes full of suspicion and hurt, Jasmine was 15. Tall and guarded, with dark skin and hair pulled back in tight braids. Marcus was 13, smaller than he should be for his age, with light brown skin and eyes that darted constantly, always looking for the exits. "So," Jasmine said, her tone challenging, "how long before you send us back?" Sarah and Elena exchanged a glance. They'd been warned about this, the testing, the walls, the expectation of abandonment. Hopefully never, Elena said honestly. But I know trust isn't given freely. It's earned. So we'll work on earning yours. We're not going to lie to you, Sarah added. This is new for us. We're going to make mistakes. But we're committed to figuring it out together if you're willing to try. Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice barely above a whisper. Do we have to call you Mom? You can call us Sarah and Elena, Sarah said gently. Or you can call us whatever feels comfortable. There's no pressure. The first few weeks were rocky. Jasmine skipped school, came home past curfew, tested every boundary. Marcus barely spoke, flinched at sudden movements, refused to eat meals with them. Elena would find him at 2 a.m., sitting in the kitchen in the dark, as if afraid to take up too much space. Even in sleep. Sarah wanted to fix everything immediately. Elena, who understood trauma more intimately, counseled patience. They've been hurt by every adult who was supposed to protect them. Elena reminded her one night after a particularly difficult day. We can't expect them to trust us just because we say we're different. We have to prove it. And that takes time. The breakthrough with Marcus came during an evening when Elena was working on a painting in the dining room. He drifted in, watching her work with fascination. Do you want to try? Elena asked, not looking up. Marcus shrugged but didn't leave. Elena set up a canvas for him, showed him how to mix colors, then left him alone. 2 hours later, she came back to find him covered in paint, abstract pinks and blues and blacks covering the canvas. This is really good, Elena said honestly. It's just what I feel sometimes, Marcus mumbled. Then it's perfect. Art doesn't have to be pretty. It has to be true. After that, Marcus and Elena painted together regularly. Slowly, he began to talk about his mother's overdose, about the string of foster homes, about the things he'd seen that no child should witness. Elena listened without judgment, sharing pieces of her own story when appropriate. You were in prison? Marcus asked one day, shocked. I was. For almost 3 years, but you're so normal. Elena smiled sadly. Being in prison doesn't make you less human, Marcus. I made a choice that broke the law. I paid for that choice. But it doesn't define everything about me. Just like the things that have happened to you don't define everything about you. You get to decide who you become. Jasmine's walls took longer to crack. She'd been in the system since she was 8, had learned to rely only on herself. The idea of depending on adults was foreign and frightening. It was Sarah who finally reached her, though not in any way she'd planned. Jasmine came home at 3 a.m. one night, drunk and belligerent. Sarah, who'd stayed up waiting, didn't yell or lecture. She just said, I'm glad you're home safe. Jasmine, spoiling for a fight, sneered, Aren't you going to punish me? Tell me what a disappointment I am? No, I'm going to make you drink 3 glasses of water, give you some ibuprofen, and help you to bed. Tomorrow, when you're sober, we'll talk about what happened and what needs to change. But right now, I'm just glad you're okay. Jasmine stared at her, then burst into tears, the first real emotion she'd shown since arriving. Sarah held her while she sobbed, this tall, tough teenager becoming small and vulnerable in her arms. I'm so tired, Jasmine whispered. I'm so tired of pretending I'm okay. I'm so tired of being alone. Then stop, Sarah said. Stop pretending. Stop being alone. Let us help you. From that night on, things changed. Jasmine started opening up about school, about her fears for the future, about the nightmares that still woke her. She started eating dinner with them, started saying goodnight before bed. Started calling them Sarah and Elena, with something that sounded almost like affection. 6 months after Jasmine and Marcus arrived, Elena and Sarah sat them down for a serious conversation. We want to talk to you about something important, Elena began. We've loved having you here. You've become part of our family. And if you're comfortable with it, we'd like to make that permanent. We want to adopt you. Jasmine and Marcus looked at each other. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Jasmine said, What if we mess up? What if we do something that makes you change your mind? Then we'll work through it, Sarah said. That's what families do. We're not looking for perfect children. We're looking for our children. And that's you. Both of you. Marcus, tears streaming down his face, whispered, "Can I call you Mom? Both of you?" Elena's voice broke. "We would be honored." The adoption was finalized 8 months later. By then, Jasmine was excelling in school, talking about college. Marcus was thriving in art therapy, processing his trauma in increasingly sophisticated pieces. They fought sometimes, like any family. But they also laughed, celebrated birthdays and holidays, built traditions and inside jokes. They were a family not despite their complicated histories, but because of them. They understood each other in ways that traditional families might not. They knew what it meant to survive, to rebuild, to choose each other every day. It wasn't all smooth sailing. When Marcus was 14, he got into trouble at school for fighting. When Sarah and Elena arrived at the principal's office, they found him sitting with a bloody nose and swelling eye, but also with a fierce, proud expression. He was saying things, Marcus said before they could ask, about our family, about you two being married, about how it wasn't natural. "So you hit him?" Sarah asked. "So I defended our family," Marcus corrected. "Wouldn't you?" Sarah and Elena looked at each other. "How did you discipline a child for defending the family you'd built together?" "We appreciate you standing up for us," Elena said carefully. "But violence isn't the answer. Words hurt, but punches can do real damage. So what should I have done? Just let him talk?" "You should have walked away and told a teacher," Sarah said, though even as she said it, she knew how inadequate that sounded to a teenager. "That's bull," Marcus said. "Sorry, but it is. People have been saying terrible things about our family since Jasmine and I got here. Teachers don't do anything. They say boys will be boys or just ignore them, but I'm done ignoring. You two taught me to be proud of who I am, of who we are. So that's what I'm doing." In the end, Marcus was suspended for 3 days. They didn't punish him further, but they did have long conversations about handling conflict, about the reality that the world wouldn't always accept their family, about finding strength that didn't require violence. "The world is changing," Elena told him, "but it's slow. There are still people who won't understand families like ours. And it's not fair that you have to deal with that, but you will. So we need to prepare you for it." Sarah enrolled Marcus in martial arts, not to fight more, but to build confidence and discipline. The instructor, a woman named Chun, taught him that real strength was about control, about knowing you could defend yourself but choosing not to unless absolutely necessary. Jasmine faced her own challenges. When she was 16, she came out as bisexual. "I know it's kind of ironic," she said with a nervous laugh. "Two lesbian moms, and I'm worried about coming out to you." "Hey," Elena said gently, "your journey is your own. You're not more valid or less valid because of who your parents are. What matters is that you know who you are. We're proud of you." "Always," Sarah added. But Jasmine's coming out led to new tensions with her biological mother, who'd recently gotten clean and wanted to rebuild their relationship. Sharon was trying, genuinely trying, but she struggled with Jasmine's sexuality in ways Sarah and Elena never had. "She says it's a phase," Jasmine told them one night after a difficult phone call. "That I'm just confused because of who raised me." Elena's jaw tightened. Sarah put a hand on her arm, a silent reminder to stay calm. "What do you think?" Sarah asked Jasmine. "I think I know who I am. I think I've known for a while." "But she's my bio mom. Shouldn't her opinion matter?" "Her opinion matters because you love her," Elena said. "But it doesn't change who you are. You're bisexual whether Sharon accepts it or not. The question is whether you're willing to wait for her to come around or whether you need to create distance for your own well-being. Can I do both? Can I love her and protect myself at the same time?" "Yes," Sarah said firmly. "Love doesn't mean accepting disrespect or harm. You can love your mother and still set boundaries." It was a delicate balance they all learned to navigate, honoring Jasmine and Marcus's connections to their biological families while maintaining the family they'd built together. Some days were harder than others, but they always came back to the same foundation: honesty, communication, and unwavering support. When Jasmine graduated from high school at 18, she'd been accepted to 3 universities with full scholarships. She chose to stay local, attending the same university where Elena had gotten her art therapy degree. "I want to be like you," Jasmine told Elena. "I want to help people the way you helped us." Marcus, now 16, was thriving. His art had been featured in a local gallery show. College scouts were already looking at his work. But more importantly, he'd found peace. His nightmares had decreased. His anxiety was manageable. He smiled more. One evening, as Sarah and Elena sat on their back porch watching the sunset, Marcus joined them. "Can I ask you something?" "Always," Sarah said. "Do you ever regret it? Everything you went through to be together?" Elena considered the question seriously. "I regret that I had to break the law to try to save Sophia. I regret the pain my choices caused. But I don't regret meeting Sarah. I don't regret the path that led me to our family. Some of the best things in life come from the hardest experiences." "Why are you asking?" Sarah asked gently. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I've been thinking about my bio mom, about the choices she made that led to me being in foster care. And I used to be so angry at her. But lately I've been thinking, if she hadn't made those choices, I never would have ended up here, with you, with this family. And I feel guilty for being glad about how things turned out." Sarah pulled him close. "It's okay to hold both truths, Marcus. You can wish your mom had made better choices and still be grateful for where you ended up. The two things don't cancel each other out." "That's the thing about life," Elena added. "It's complicated, messy, beautiful and painful all at once. We contain multitudes, contradictions. That's what makes us human." That same week, Sarah received an email that would change everything. A major news outlet wanted to do a feature story on their family, how they'd met, the obstacles they'd overcome, the children they'd fostered and adopted. "I don't know," Elena said when Sarah showed her the email. "That's a lot of exposure. Our story is so specific. People could identify Riverside, figure out details about my case." "I know. And if you're not comfortable, we say no. Simple as that. But..." Elena could hear the hesitation in Sarah's voice. "But families like ours need visibility. Queer families, families built through foster care and adoption, families that don't fit the traditional mold. If we share our story, maybe we help someone else feel less alone." They talked about it for days, weighing the risks and benefits. Eventually, they decided to do the interview with one condition: they would control the narrative. They would tell their story on their own terms. The article came out 3 months later. It was honest, touching, and went viral within hours. Sarah and Elena's phones exploded with messages from former inmates thanking Elena for representing them with dignity, from LGBTQ+ individuals who saw themselves in the story, from social workers and foster families inspired by their journey. But they also received hate mail. Messages calling them perverts, predators, saying they shouldn't be allowed to raise children. Someone found their address and sent threatening letters. For a week, they debated whether they'd made a mistake. Then a letter arrived from a young woman named Amy. She wrote, "I'm 19 years old. I was in foster care for 6 years. I'm gay. I've spent my entire life thinking that people like me don't get happy endings. I thought I'd always be alone, always be broken. Then I read your story, and for the first time I have hope. If you can find love, build a family, overcome everything you've faced, maybe I can too. Thank you for being visible. Thank you for being brave. You saved my life." Sarah and Elena cried reading it. They realized that every hateful message was worth it for the Amys of the world, for the people who needed to see that their stories weren't over, that love and family were possible no matter where you started. Years passed. Jasmine graduated with her degree in social work and started working with LGBTQ+ youth in the foster care system. Marcus's art career flourished. He held exhibits in major cities, sold pieces to collectors. But his favorite work remained the community projects where he taught art to kids who reminded him of his younger self. Sarah became the executive director of her nonprofit, which had expanded to 3 cities. She wrote a book about criminal justice reform that became required reading in social work programs across the country. She testified before Congress, advocating for policy changes that would prevent women like Elena from ever having to make impossible choices. Elena opened a second therapy practice and started a scholarship fund for formerly incarcerated individuals seeking education in the arts. She never forgot where she came from or the people she'd left behind at Riverside. They celebrated their 10th anniversary with a trip back to the garden where they'd married. The roses were blooming again, and they renewed their vows in front of Jasmine, Marcus, and their expanding chosen family. Marcus's girlfriend, Jasmine's partner, Sarah's parents, her father now using a cane but still standing tall. Elena's parents, her father finally truly accepting. 10 years, Elena marveled. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Which would you prefer? Sarah asked with a smile. Both. All of it. Every moment, good and bad, that led us here. That night, lying in bed in the same cottage where they prepared for their wedding a decade earlier, Sarah said, "Do you think we made a difference?" What do you mean? The advocacy work, the kids we've helped, sharing our story. Do you think we actually changed anything? Elena rolled over to face her, illuminated by moonlight streaming through the window. I think about Amy, that girl who wrote to us after the article. She's in college now. We get Christmas cards from her. She's studying to be a teacher. That's one life directly impacted. But what about systemic change? Real reform? That takes generations, Sarah. We're planting seeds we may never see grow into trees, but that doesn't mean they won't grow. Look. At Jasmine, she's helping LGBTQ foster youth every single day. Look at Marcus, he's using his art to tell stories that need telling. They'll carry this work forward and they'll inspire others, and those others will inspire more. When did you become so wise? I had a good teacher, Elena said, pulling Sarah close. This stubborn corrections officer who saw past my prison uniform and decided I was worth knowing. Best decision I ever made. Second best, Elena corrected. The best decision was saying yes when I asked you to marry me. I thought I asked you? Details, Elena said, laughing. The point is, we both said yes, and we keep saying yes. To each other, to our family, to the life we're building. That's what matters. Sarah kissed her wife, this woman who transformed her world, who taught her what love really meant, who'd shown her that the path to happiness is rarely straight or simple. I love you, Elena Mitchell Vasquez. I love you. Sarah Mitchell Vasquez. Outside, the roses bloomed under the stars. Inside, two women who'd found each other against impossible odds held tight. Dreaming of the future they continue building together one day. One choice, one act of love at a time. Their story had started in a prison, built on stolen moments and forbidden feelings. But it had grown into something bigger than either of them alone, a family, a legacy. A testament to the power of seeing someone fully and choosing to love them anyway, and somewhere. In some young person's life, the impact of their choices rippled outward, creating new stories, new possibilities. New hope. That was legacy enough. 6 months later, they married in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Maria served as Elena's maid of honor. Sarah's mother cried happy tears. And when the officiant pronounced them married, when they kissed as the sun streamed through the windows, everyone present understood that they were witnessing something rare and precious, a love that had survived impossible circumstances and emerged stronger. Elena continued her art therapy work, eventually opening her own practice specializing in trauma recovery. Sarah became the director of her nonprofit, expanding services to help thousands of women rebuild their lives after incarceration. They advocated together for criminal justice reform, healthcare access, and LGBTQ rights. They became foster parents to 2 teenagers aging out of the system. They built a life filled with purpose, love, and the knowledge that sometimes the best things come from the places we least expect. And on Tuesday evenings, they still had their ritual art supplies spread across their dining room table, working side by side, connected by the same quiet understanding that had first drawn them together in a prison art room years before. Love had found them in the darkness. Together, they brought each other into the light.